Greetings everybody, I hope that you guys are good. Let us have a look at GBP CAD. I'm on the monthly chart, as you guys can see, and one of the first things that I can already see in regards to this monthly chart is the fact that we have this very strong level of resistance at that level, which is also the neckline of this structure, as you guys can see. So the anticipation at this point in time is for the market to head back to the neckline to test it, and we might potentially look for further selling opportunities at that point. And that is because, as you guys know by now, that when we have M structures, we would love to see price break to the bottom side of that neckline and then head back up to test the neckline, and then hopefully at this point we would then see price move further down, right? Similarly, in regards to this M structure, we would love to see price come back to that neckline, and that's where we may potentially look for selling opportunities, as the expectation or the anticipation is for the market to move further down, right? Let me just actually add a neckline to that structure. Just bear with me while I do so. So that's our neckline of that huge M structure, which is also, as I said, a very strong level of resistance. Just bear with me, guys. There we go, right? So let's proceed. Is there anything else that we see on this particular monthly chart of GBP CAD that we should be paying attention to? And the answer is no at this point in time. So I'm gonna head down to the weekly chart, and here we are on the weekly chart. Here we are on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, I can also see that we had this candlestick over here. It is a liquidity candlestick, and it tells us that the market at one point or another needs to head back to that level to trigger that liquidity, because liquidity is actually, or rather liquidity represents money which needs to be triggered by the market. I'm just gonna also mark that level as well, because it is extremely important. This level over here, there we go. And can you guys also see that where we have that liquidity candlestick, it is also in line with the neckline of that huge M structure that we spoke about on the monthly chart, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So what else do we see in regards to the weekly chart of GBP CAD? I can also see that we have a very nice M structure. It's actually an overextended M structure which has a neckline at this point over here. Similarly, we can see that price broke the neckline to the bottom side. However, we're yet to see price return to the neckline to test it, and if it does so, we will most likely look for a selling opportunity at that point, and at least to this level over here where this structure actually started. I'm just going to add a neckline to that structure as well. Just bear with me. There we go, more or less. There goes the neckline of that M structure. So what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I can see is that we had this candlestick over here. It is also a liquidity candlestick. It is very much similar to this one over here. However, at this point in time, I will not really mark this one because I believe it is not that important at this point. We will consider this candlestick once price closes above this level, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So from here, what I'm going to do is head down to the daily chart. Here we are on the daily chart. The first thing that I'm going to do in regards to the daily chart is add my channel. Let's see. Just bear with me, guys, while I add my channel. There goes my channel, more or less. Let's see. I just need to ensure that it is pretty accurate. There we go. That should be fine. Anyway, let's proceed. So we're still on the daily chart, right? And I've added my daily channel. And another thing that I can see, which is also very much important in regards to the daily chart, is the fact that we have this M structure at that point, which has a neckline at more or less this level over here, right? We can see that the neckline is yet to be broken to the upside. However, having said that, just remember that when it comes to W structures, a lot of traders and investors usually buy on that second leg of the W structure, meaning this point over here, and they put their stop losses just below that structure, right? Meaning over here, right? So this tells us that as much as we have that W structure, it is quite also possible, and especially given the fact that the market has not yet broken the neckline to the upside, price may push further down to trigger all of these stop losses and then potentially move further up. There is a possibility that we need to keep in the back of our minds, right? So that would be this level over here, where price would potentially push down to trigger the stop losses, and then from here potentially push further up, right? So I'm just gonna add a neckline to that M structure as well. And just to emphasize, guys, remember that necklines are an area and not so much an actual line, right? So we can say that this whole area over here is the neckline, in my humble opinion, of that W structure, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? Remember, guys, I said that we have let me actually just zoom out a bit, just bear with me. Remember, guys, I said that at this point we have a W structure, right? And that we have a lot of stop losses that are located just below the W structure. As much as that's the case, just bear in mind also that we have this candlestick over here. It is a liquidity candlestick and is carrying a lot of liquidity at this level, more or less, where it ends, right? So that level too is very much important, and it ties in with what I've just said about the market potentially moving further down to grab some liquidity and then potentially moving further up, right? So I'm just going to mark this area as well because it is extremely important. There we go. There we go. Right. From this point, I'm just going to head down to the excuse me, the H4 chart, seeing that I don't see much of interest at this point in regards to the daily chart of GBP CAD. So just bear with me. So here we are on the H4 chart. I'm just gonna fix my lines. Let's see. There we go. This should be fine. Right. So let's proceed. So as I said, we're now on the H4 chart. What do we see in regards to the H4 chart? What do we see in regards to the H4 chart that we should be paying attention to? Remember, guys, on the daily time frame, I spoke about how we have this just bear with me, how we have this W structure at this point, right? As much as we have that W structure, I hope you guys can also see that we have an opposing M structure at this point. It's actually an overextended M structure, and it has a neckline at around this level or so, and we can see that the neckline has not yet been broken to the bottom side, right? And should that happen, we would wait for price to head back to the neckline and we would sell to this point, and that is because we have this level over here, which is a level of liquidity which needs to be triggered by the market. To add to that, because we have this W structure, there are stop losses at this point, and it is quite possible that the market may push further down to trigger all of the stop losses, right? At this point, I will not really add a neckline to this M structure, and that is because we have an opposing structure actually, we have an opposing structure on the H4 chart, which is this smaller W structure, which has a neckline at this point, more or less, right? And we can see that price broke to the other side of that neckline, came back to retest the neckline of the W structure, and we would have looked for further buying opportunities at this point, as the anticipation is for the market to push further up. However, having said that, just bear in mind that on the daily chart we have that huge, let me just actually clear this. On the daily chart we have that huge W structure that I spoke about, which has a neckline at this point, and we can see that the neckline, as I said, is yet to be broken to the upside, right? Once price, or rather had price broken to the upside of that neckline at this point, we would have waited for it to come back to the neckline, and we would have looked for buying opportunities at that point, and our take profit would have been this level over here. And that is because we have this very strong level of resistance, which is the M structure, or rather which is the neckline of that M structure, which I spoke about on the monthly chart. To add to that, we also have this candlestick. As you can see, it is a liquidity candlestick, and it is carrying a lot of liquidity at that point, right? I hope you guys can see that. Anyway, let's proceed. So what I'm going to do now is actually add a smaller neckline to the smaller W structure, because this neckline is actually a very strong level of support. As you guys can see, we had multiple rejections at that level, so just bear with me. And just to remind you guys that all of these lines that I'm adding are just to make our lives so much simpler as we move down from the smaller time frames, rather from the bigger time frames to the smaller time frames, right? There we go. So as I said, this neckline is the neckline of this W structure, right? And the neckline of this M structure would be somewhere here, but I'm not going to do it for now. We're just going to focus on this W structure as well as this neckline, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So just looking at the chart at this point in time, and just looking at this W structure and this neckline, we can see that the market has been giving us pin bars at this point, and this indicates that we might potentially see the market push further up to at least this level once again, right? So that's one thing we need to keep in the back of our minds. Another thing that I'm going to do at this point is, in fact, let me not do it now. I'll do it perhaps on the H1 chart. So from here, I'm just going to head down to the H1 chart. However, before we do so, let me just add my H4 channel as well. Just bear with me. How would I add my H4 channel? I would do it in this manner. So there goes my H4 channel, more or less, which confirms that we are in an upward trajectory in as far as the H4 chart goes. And yeah, in as far as the H4 chart goes, I don't see any buying or selling opportunities at this point in time, right? Nonetheless, let's head down to the H1 to see if we can find any. So here we are on the H1 chart. Let's see. Here we are on the H1 chart. What do we see on the H1 chart? Let's have a look. On the H1 chart, I can see that we had a very nice W structure at this point, or at that level, which has a neckline at this point over here, right? We saw price break to the upside of that neckline, and then coming back to retest